Welcome in on a rankings episode in the MovieBuffs Podcast. My name is Tyler Valencia, and I got 3 shows that I'm going to rank for you in this episode and give you a little bit about it, tell you why I like it or why I didn't like it, maybe any issues in it. And as always, episodes like this are to give you ideas of what's out there. Maybe you're looking for a show, you're thinking, oh, I saw a trailer for that. Is it interesting? So we're going to be talking about 3 shows, like I mentioned: Ted Lasso, Trying, and C.B. Strike. So this one I kind of call the British invasion. But before we get to any further, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I know there's a lot of options out there, so I greatly appreciate you taking the time to listen. If you can, leave us a review on your favorite podcasting platform and make sure to subscribe on YouTube. So I already mentioned what's in this episode, the 3 shows. All of these shows have 3 seasons out that you can already watch. Hopefully you have Apple TV, or you have, let me think, what is the last one on there? Trying Apple TV or Max. And of the 3, Ted Lasso is the only one that's actually not slated for a 4th season. So the other 2, C.B. Strike, Trying, do have more seasons scheduled to come out. Now I have to, and this was a recommendation from my wife about, what are you going to include yada yada in this? And those 2 yada yadas were Outlaws, which I already did a instant reaction for. I was thoroughly impressed with that show. There's 2 seasons of it already out on Amazon Prime. I've recommended it to some friends, some listeners of the episode of the podcast already. I think it's a fantastic show. I really like one of the creators, writer, Stephen Merchant. He's the tall, gangly guy that's in some British comedies. Funny gentleman. I think he's one of the co-creators of the British, what is that called? The Office. And the other one being, what was the last show that I was thinking about putting in here? That was also, there was The Outlaws, and it was, I'm drawing a blank on the last one. And I know that somebody listening to this is going to text me and tell me what it is. But let's get in for this rankings, and I'm going to start at the bottom. And I'm going to start with a surprise here. And I don't think I've told many people this one, why. But number 3 in this rankings is actually Ted Lasso. And that might be a surprise because I know that Ted Lasso has a lot of clout. A lot of people like it. But I personally did not like season 3. I really feel like it fell off a cliff, and I feel like the writing was the big issue with it. The magic of Ted Lasso is, it's not a possible scenario. There's no way that any soccer team, Premier League, Championship, whatever it is in Europe, other league, they're not going to hire some random football coach from the US to spite anybody. It would never happen. But put that aside, the magic of this episode was Ted Lasso, his euphemisms, all his quotes, all his out of the box thinking that got people to like the show. That's why they tuned in. That's why people wanted more seasons of it. That's why they thought it was funny. That's despite it not being realistic at all. And I know that this last series, or I can't say I know, but this last series or the last season of it, I really felt like it tried too hard to handle tough topics. And that's actually one of my big issues with a show. If they can handle it, or if they're going to tiptoe around it, or if they're not going to handle it properly, I'm going to be upset. There's some shows that I've talked about in this podcast, but also with friends, family, that I've been thoroughly impressed. Like one of my favorite shows over the last few years, Kim's Convenience. They talk about a lot of tough topics, and they handle them greatly. They really do handle them with care. Another show that one of the greatest episodes of any type of sports documentary out there, it was season 2 of Last Chance U of Basketball, where they had a whole episode dedicated to one of the players that is on the spectrum. He's autistic. And it was easily one of the best pieces of television I've ever seen because of how they handled it. And with this last season of Ted Lasso, they turned it more into a drawn out or unrealistic in terms of some of the things that the team handles. And I will say, spoiler alert here, because I am going to say something that is one of the items I'm pointing to here. But the way that they dealt with one of the players coming out as gay, I felt like it was something that was just tiptoed around, and it just lingered on for the whole series, when it's something that personally, growing up in sports, playing a lot of sports, and still playing sports, watching sports, I feel like I've seen how it has not as big of a deal that some media want to make it out to be. People are going to accept them for who they are. In the team surrounding, they understand that they're not there to be, as some people might think, to get picked up on or anything like of that nature. They're all there because they enjoy sports. They like being a part of the team, and they're going to be accepted. And I think that the way that they handled it was improper. And to go further into some of the issues I had here, a lot of it was the storylines, giving storylines to characters that I feel like shouldn't have, and not picking up on other ones that I felt like were stronger. One of them being Keely and her storyline throughout it. I thought that I could have done without it. This is nothing against the actress. I don't think that her storyline, really fit. It took away from Ted Lasso. Again, one of the main features of the show that people like to tune in for. And one of those storylines that involved her was there was inappropriate photos of her that were leaked. And now jumping into that a little bit further here, I thought it was honestly unrealistic of what happened in that episode. Now, again, spoiler alert here. I'm going to talk about it. And in this, I'm going to dance around it a little bit, but still, I'm going to talk about this. This situation happened. They basically gathered everybody up and they had them all delete the inappropriate photos from their phones. And in my opinion, that would never happen. If you've been a part of a team, and especially at that high of a level, a lot of those players, they grew up in academies. They grew up in situations where education is maybe not as important because of football or soccer, and the day-to-day normal interactions with classmates is not the same. So some of them, in my opinion, are immature, and there's no way that they would just take out the phones and just all delete them. I thought it was very unrealistic, and just somebody not understanding professional sports. And that's just my opinion on that. But it was something that stood out to me and made me not watch it, to be honest. I'll admit it right here. I didn't finish this season. I thought it was that bad. And with this last season, something that probably makes me a little bit more frustrated is I know that this is a series that's popular within the media, and it's probably going to get nominated for awards, despite it being poorly written, poorly executed. And, that's my opinion on this. But I mean, I stopped. I just couldn't handle it anymore. Just the taking away from what people tuned in for, Ted Lasso, and all his quirkiness. It goes away from what the series and why people originally tuned in. So I know that that's probably a surprise, or people that maybe watched it, they might share as well what they thought of it. You can say that I'm wrong. You could say that you actually liked it. That's cool. That's fine with me. I just was not a big fan of it at all. And I think that they could have done better with storylines involving the owner that was kind of getting involved romantically, doing more with that in the beginning of this season. And somebody listening to this be like, oh, something happened later on. And I wouldn't know, because it didn't capture me. It didn't make me want to watch anymore.
Feeling inspired by hosts Ron and Tyler? This episode of the MovieBuffs Podcast is brought to you by the YouTube workout channel Time to Train Fitness. With all things YouTube, it's free. Jump into a bar class, crank out a cycling workout, or pump out a strength session. Everything you need to work out for free at home. Check out the description and subscribe today.
You heard the promo about Time to Train Fitness and you're thinking, how do I get some dumbbells? there's really only two products that I recommend when it comes to at-home fitness, and one of those are the Core Home Fitness Adjustable Dumbbells. If you're already following the YouTube workouts, these are the dumbbells that I use, me, Tyler, and you've probably seen me adjust them between the weights super fast. Along with adjusting quickly, they go from 5 pounds to 50 pounds and feel great in the hands. Head to the link in the description and grab yourself a pair. You have the free workouts on YouTube and will now have the dumbbells to help you reach your fitness goals. Now, I'm going to move to number 2 here. And this is, to clarify, these are talking about the last seasons of these series. The other ones, other parts of it, hopefully you can binge it all, watch them all. But I'm going to be talking mostly about the last seasons of these, and some before the last season, but a little bit more focusing on that. Now, number 2 here, and it's CB Strike. And you might not be, or you might not recognize this series, the name of it. And I actually went back and forth on number 2 and number 1 because I might have liked CB Strike in some of the series or the seasons more than trying for the number 1 spot, but I really do feel like this is correct. So if you're unaware of this show, it's on Max, and I'm going to read you the IMDb summary, which says, war veteran turned private detective Cormoran Strike solves brutal murders with the help of his trusted partner, Robin Ellicott. Now, I joke about this one with my wife because the thumbnail image or the image, I remember when it would be featured on Max, I'd be like, what is this about? Like, I have no idea. I didn't know anything about it. I don't even think I watched the trailer, but I was like, this is an awful thumbnail image. It's just the main character CB's his face on the whole screen. And it's actually pretty good in terms of the content of it, in terms of something to watch. If you didn't know, this is actually a series based on the writing of J.K. Rowling. I didn't know that. I think she had a pen name that she wrote them under originally, but it's based on her writing. And I believe these closely follow the books, but they typically follow one of the books. And it's a crime mystery thriller, and they follow a story or a murder throughout a whole season. Now, some of the issues that I did have with it, I thought that the music at times was just wrong, and sometimes the sound, it sounds like they placed the track and the volumes of it, they placed them wrong, and sometimes it didn't fit. And I was like, oh man, did someone professionally do that? Did they really make that choice to put it there? But I mean, that's kind of nitpicking there. Sometimes the music is good and you can vibe to it, or sometimes it's not good and you're thinking, man, what were they thinking with it? The 2 main characters of this are CB, or Cormoran Strike, and he's played by Tom Burke, and Robin Ellicott is played by Holiday Granger. You might have seen Tom Burke in Only God Forgives or The Souvenir. I didn't see any of those, and he was actually a new actor to me. Holiday Granger plays one of the sisters in the newer-ish Cinderella. That's probably where I think of her because I haven't seen her in anything else. And she was in a movie called My Cousin Rachel. So relatively new actors to me. I thought they do a fine job. And one of my favorite parts about this show is, and I'll give a spoiler here, and actually I'm not going to include that part. Why my favorite part of it is because I want you guys to enjoy the series, watch it, and wonder what's going to happen. I will say that the murders and the way that they break them down, the way that they solve them, it's all fun. It's all action-packed. It's a thriller, and you'll enjoy them. So give it a try. Give 1 episode, 2 episodes a try. If you don't like it, all good. There's many shows out there. But let's get to number 1 here, and it's Trying. And with Trying, I got to say that it handles a topic that not just the point of my life where looking at having kids, growing my family, but it handles a topic, adoption, that I wish we saw more about. I wish there was more education out there, knowledge about it, how you can adopt a child, because I feel like adoption and kids in the foster system is one of the sad realities of our world, of our nation. And Trying deals with two individuals that are trying to get a child, trying to have a child, and then they end up going down the path of adopting a child. And it's an Apple TV show, which features Rafe Spall and Esther Smith. Rafe he's actually in a lot of comedies that I like. He's in Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead. He's also in The Big Short and Life of Pi. I've seen him in those comedies, and he's hilarious. Or even though he has smaller parts in them, but and it's good to see him in his younger self. But I didn't know who Esther was, but you might know her from Cuckoo. I didn't know her before this show. The IMDb summary says all Jason and Nikki want is a baby, but it's the one thing they can't have. So they decide to adopt. With their dysfunctional friends, screwball family, and chaotic lives, will the adoption panel think they're ready to be parents? And like I mentioned before, it handles a topic that I wish was more out there, that was more forefront, that people saw in signs, people knew where to look for information on, and that they considered because, again, there's kids that were given this hand that they didn't ask for. And hopefully, shows like this that show the realities of it, people that want to have kids, that it maybe convinces or helps them go down that path. Now, there are several episodes that are tearjerkers. I'll admit that definitely got a little watery eyes, and I think that's a good sign of it. The writing, the acting, how it all comes together, the topic, all those things. And part of this series too is the likability of the main characters. I know that there's several shows that I've watched over the years that I just don't like the characters. I don't like how they're written. Sometimes it's on purpose. That's how they're written, and that's the way that they're acted. But there's a likability to the main characters. They're not perfect. They're flawed. They go through situations that anybody in this world that they'll go through in life. And that part of it, that they don't know everything. They're not the best at something. They're not the hardest working, or whatever that might be. The imperfections of them is what makes you like the show more, that the characters, how they're written. Another good part about this series is also the supporting cast. They have good story arcs that they build from, that are realistic, that also they don't focus overly on them. They don't take too much away from the main characters. But one of my favorite ones is actually one of the grandparents, and he's a little socially awkward, but he's always going to do the right thing. And I'm going to talk about an episode of this because maybe pieces of it remind me of myself. But I remember when you're first introduced to one of the grandparents, and I believe it is Rafe's or Jason's dad in it. And he, when you're first introduced to him, they're having all the grandparents, or they're having all their parents over, and he ends up basically like hiding because he doesn't want to sit and talk with everybody. So he goes around their apartment and he's trying to fix doorknobs, creaky cabinets, things along that nature, because he just doesn't want to sit and talk with people. And so he's a little socially awkward. But then there's an episode where they're doing the adoption agency's doing tours of the house, and they're talking about how all the kids are supposed to have a room, and the kids that they're interested in, there's two of them. And when this grandparent hears about it, he goes there and he starts building the beds, building the rooms. And he builds them because he says how the kids need to have beds. And that's doing the right thing. Doing the right thing because he understands the situation, and he wants them to have a life, all those kinds of things that, you feel for. So he's probably one of my favorite characters in it. And that's often what he does, that he wants to do the right thing for them. So with this British Invasion rankings, hopefully a little bit different than what you're used to. And like I said before, I hope you watch them. If you are interested, what I was going to say from the CB strike one of my favorite aspects of it, message us on your favorite social media platforms, and I'll just tell you, hopefully after you watched it. But I almost gave something away that probably you should watch in it. And I'll share a little bit more about that if you want to message us on your favorite social media platform, like I said. Thank you as always for listening. I hope you enjoyed this. Gives you something to watch, give you something to tune in for, that you're looking, you're scanning, and you want to find a new series to like. Here you go. 3 different ones, 2 of them on Apple TV and 1 on Max that you can tune in for, watch 3 seasons for, binge it up, and have a good time with. Thank you as always for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.